So I figured I'd try and do something ever so slightly different for this video. We've seen many great videos showcasing folks' top 10 C64 games of all time, and there are certain staples that deservedly appear every time. Turrican 2, Uridium, The Last Ninja series, Impossible Mission and so on. They're all fantastic games, no doubt, but for this video I've decided to take the road less travelled. There's probably only one game in this list that might actually make my top 10 if I was to do it with no restrictions. But for something a little bit different, I decided to focus on games I enjoy that don't typically appear in your average top list. In actual fact, none of these games are in the Lemon 64 top 100 at all. These games might be more popular than I've assumed, so please don't destroy me in the comments if you've already played many of them to death. I'm not popular enough for that yet. Anyway, hopefully you'll find a couple of hidden gems in this list, or it might even rekindle memories of games long forgotten. Anyway, let's get to it. First in this list we've got Traffic from 1984, written by Andromeda Software. If you recognise that name, it's likely because they brought us many other games, my favourite of which would probably be Scarabaeus. But we'll talk about that game another time. Traffic, like the title might suggest, is a stripped-down traffic simulator. Each level is a small subsection of a busy city, and your role is to ensure that gridlock doesn't occur in the city. You control a set of traffic lights at each junction, simply switching them between red and green using the fire button. You need to ensure that traffic doesn't build up off screen, since that's the difference between success and failure in this game. If you allow the traffic to get too out of control, it's game over. You only get one go at it in this game. What I love about Traffic, apart from the addictive mechanic that's been recycled hundreds of times since, is there's so much going on. There's tons of movement on the screen with cars turning and queuing up in all different directions. I'm not entirely sure how they achieved all this independence, but there's like some lovely programming tricks behind this. You'll also hear car horns from time to time if you're not doing a good job, and you can even see the tiny indicators flashing at the front of the blocky little vehicles indicating their intention. You can actually use this directional information to make informed decisions on how to route the traffic for the quickest resolution. Anyway, it's a great game and one you should check out if you haven't already. Next up on the list, we've got Crossfire from 1983, developed by the, well, soon-to-be Behemoth Sierra Online. It was originally developed for the Apple II, which itself was a rearrangement of an arcade game, the name of which I can't quite remember right now. If I were forced to describe it, I'd say it's somewhere between Pac-Man and trying to escape a wasp's nest unscathed. It's absolutely mental. There's a bit of unnecessary backstory to it, but the ultimate goal is to wipe everything out on the screen. As you can see, it's bloody hectic. You never really know when the next aliens are going to pop out, nor from where. You'll end up being chased around the grid in a mad panic with bullets flying in every direction. That's exactly why this game is so good. It'll keep you constantly on edge in a state of high alert, just like a good arcade game should. I also love the soundtrack, which, while simple, is just perfect. It's a cracking game. Now, if you weren't already on edge enough, how about a game where you clear spiders from a bath? Yeah. This is Arachnopho from sometime in the late 80s. I don't have a definitive date since it's not specified on the title screen, but I remember getting this on a cover disc about 88 or 89 perhaps. The aim of the game is simple. Stop these damn spiders from getting to the end of the bath where you're placed, with what I can only assume is a water pistol or like a weaponised shower head of some kind. If you successfully get the spiders back in the plug hole, you'll have to waggle the stick furiously as you try and escape the clutches of an absolutely enormous spider in order to head to the next bath. Back in a time when video games didn't have to make a damn lick of sense. As a professional and lifelong arachnophobe, I was always drawn to this game in a kind of morbid fascination. The spiders look plenty detailed enough to put the hairs up on the back of my neck, and it almost seems like a real-life simulator, chronicling my own experience of getting spiders back down the plug hole and then running for dear life when I realised I'd angered them. It's a silly game, it's hard as nails, but it is a lot of fun. Time to slow things down a bit, I think. This next game is called Crystal Fever, and it's another cover disc game from around about 1990. I got this on a magazine in the UK I believe was called C64 Fun, if anyone remembers it, but it was also available elsewhere. But I'm not going to beat around the bush with this one, it's a Boulder Dash clone, plain and simple. That said, it's got some nice features like keys to unlock doors, different types of crystals to collect, water that will destroy anything you accidentally drop in it, and even a weird kind of slime that builds up over time. It's very colourful, it's fairly fast paced, it moves smoothly and it controls really nicely. The included levels are harder than a coffin nail though, so it requires a bit of patience. The real star attraction here is a very neat level editor. You can edit the entire level on just this single screen with access to all the various block types. And you can test and iterate very quickly with the control panel at the top. Certainly check this one out if you like the Boulder Dash style. It's very polished and it's a hell of a challenge. Okay, so this game is one I wasn't sure whether to include or not. It's probably more popular than I'm giving it credit for, but I rarely see it mentioned, and I do love it, so it kind of fits. This game is called UGG, or perhaps UGG, from 1992, developed by German outfit Egosoft, who funnily enough are still going today. It's unashamedly a take on Space Taxi, but it's a damn good one. It's set in a weird parallel universe Jurassic era where humans also somehow existed. Like I said before, it's a time when video games didn't have to make the slightest bit of sense. The objective is to collect each of the passengers from the door at which they appear, and then just deliver them to the door which they'll mutter to you when you land. The taxi controls are a little bit like the spaceship from Thrust. You're constantly fighting gravity and pedalling just the right amount to land smoothly. It takes a bit of effort to master, but after a while you'll be whipping around as if on autopilot. In the later levels there are pterodactyls and other strange beasts strategically placed to make your life extremely difficult. If you do happen to flatten a passenger and they fall into the water, you can gently lower down onto the water to scoop them up. Or if they're too far away, they'll drown. It's another great game and it's really, really addictive. At number 6 we got Mr. Cool from 1983, once again developed by Sierra Online, who obviously are going to become huge very soon after this. This one sets up camp firmly in the "Cubert, what's that?" field, and it's a straight up two-dimensional take on that arcade classic. In this game you play as an ice cube, and you have to work your way up and down the pyramid of platforms, changing the colours of each of them. There are flames that shoot from either side, and strange springs which enter from the top of the playing area, and will have you scrambling to avoid them as they bounce their way down. Much like its inspiration, later levels require you to change the colours of each platform more than once in order to progress. There's nothing amazing here, but it's a nice game that offers a twist on the original. And that melting death animation really seems quite sinister to me. And whilst we're talking about game developers who absolutely definitely did not play Cubert, we've got Pancho from 1985. This is kind of even less ashamedly wearing its inspiration on its sleeve, but the Mexican theme is kind of fun. The title animation of Pancho chasing a black bean to the theme of La Cucaracha is great stuff, if perhaps maybe a little bit of an outdated stereotype. It's Cubert through and through though, as the visuals probably already tell you. Although you do have the two white platforms on either side which you can land on to get some respite from the angry bomb thing that chases you around. You can also warp to one of these during play if the going gets really tough, but you can only do this a limited number of times. It's faster than Cubert, it's more frenetic, and in my opinion it's a great game. Check it out. At number 8 on this list is Bandits from 1983, published by Serious Software. It was originally an Apple II game. It's yet another one that wears its influence right out in the open for everyone to see, and I don't think I need to say what that influence is. It's a classic wave-based shooter in which the aim is to destroy all the aliens and prevent them from stealing stuff from your ship. If an attack wave gets past your bullets, they'll nab something from the right-hand side of the screen, and as they travel back across the top, you've got another chance to pinch it back for bonus points. What I like most about this game is there's so much going on for a C64 title. Tons of sprites moving around, bullets flying everywhere. There's also these annoying little menaces, as they're called, that will move down the screen with an infuriatingly unpredictable attack pattern, in the best possible way, of course. For me, it's a better game than the one I shall not name that it's trying to mimic, but like many others on this list, it's hard as nails. Check it out. Okay, we're getting near the end now, and this is one of my favourites, possibly my favourite of this list. This is a game called Microdot, written by Jim Blackler. I'm not sure on the date, but I'm thinking somewhere in the mid to late 80s. Whilst at first glance it probably looks pretty rudimentary and basic, it's actually a really nice platformer. You play as a Microdot, which is basically just a rolling ball. I'm not sure of the story behind it, but I'm sure there is one. Anyway, you work your way through the many screens, and there really are many, trying to collect radioactive particles whilst avoiding the enemy sprites and collecting power-ups. The power-ups can be extra lives, temporary invulnerability, things like that. As you move through the screens, you can roll over these cyan-coloured blocks with the arrow on them to save your position. You'll return to the most recently touched one of these if you die. You also have a limited amount of super jumps, which you'll need to get to high places. You can collect more of these during the game as well. But the main thing that draws me to this game, much like Crystal Fever, is the addition of a level editor. You can craft any type of screens you like using any of the objects from the game, and it's a sizable map, so you can go mad with it. Don't judge a book by its cover though, give this one a go. At number 10 we've got Monsters, another cover disc game from 1989, written by a chap by the name of Darren Cook. It's a pretty classical statistics-based fighting game, but one with a very nice level of polish. You're given a number of credits at the start to buy your very own monster, and you'll train it, equip it with weapons, and then pit it against other monsters, the end goal being to buy or fight your way to the top and become king of the monsters. While it's mainly text-based, the presentation is lovely with a really nice font, colourful text, and plenty of instructional and incidental information to read. It also only uses 4 function keys for everything in the game as well, which makes it easy to get started. I was hooked on this for a while when I was about 9 years old. You could probably still get hooked on it now, it's great stuff. At number 11, it's yet another cover disc game, or at least something I acquired on a cover disc. This is Bazair, written by Proteus Developments and released in 1988. It's kind of hard to describe, but at its essence it's a collection of mini-games that repeat over and over, getting progressively harder. You've got a little reflex testing section, platforming section, a vertically scrolling dodge 'em up, we'll say, a thrust-like landing section, a horizontally scrolling dodge 'em up section, a musical memory section, and then finally a second platforming section. It's rinse and repeat, but it gets unbelievably hard. I mean, look at the state of this. This is insane. A lot of effort clearly went into this game, and it's curiously addictive in a really good way. Go and find it. And last, but most assuredly not least, is a game called Rainbow Chaser by Psychonetics, released in 1988. It's yet another game that I acquired through a magazine cover disc. It's a neat little platformer with a kind of whizball-like aesthetic. The aim of the game is to collect all of the rainbows on the stage and return them to the wizard who is found on the far left of the map. I haven't looked into why you do this or why you're playing as an egg, but I'm sure there's a wonderful backstory behind it. You can fire stars which fire in 3 directions at once, but since enemies regenerate when you re-enter a screen, it's probably best just to avoid them instead. It's a pretty little game that moves fast and has a nice feeling to the movement and jumping, and it has a sizable map that sometimes seems like it goes on forever. Oh, and if I haven't mentioned it, yeah, just like the others, it's harder than Vindaloo Mutton. It's another one to check out. So there you have it, my top 12 C64 games that you might not have played. If you have any of your own overlooked or niche games that got lost to the annals of time, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to do a second part to this video, as I'm sure there are tons of undiscovered gems waiting to be documented. And if you can, of course, please like or subscribe or both. It'll make me feel warm and fuzzy inside and reassure me that my videos don't entirely suck. Thanks for watching.